You cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in its mouth.
That was a video that the Department of Education posted on Twitter that featured a quick clip from a movie that was featuring Winston Churchill as he was talking about your head in a tiger's mouth. What he was referencing in that tiger reference was Adolf Hitler. That would lead many people to accurately believe that they're comparing Donald Trump, the tiger, because in the post actually says, "No one does it like us," with a tiger emoji. I would think that links this whole idea to them being the tiger, who in that reference was Adolf Hitler. That sounds like an admission to me.
And I know you've been asked about this before, about past comments that you've made about Donald Trump. You've said, I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him, terrible candidate, idiot if you voted for him, might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible.
This is a stroll down memory lane type of discussion I like to have with you guys. All of these people with Trump derangement syndrome, all of these woke people, all of these radical libs have been saying since this guy ever took any step in any form of public discourse that he is a white supremacist, racist, a-hole, a Nazi, if you will. And as he came into political life, he really showed off how much he adores Adolf Hitler and copies everything that he likes to do. That's also backed by the Nazis that are in the Heritage Foundation that are fueling his entire presidency. But let's have some more memories about what it is that we were pulling our hair out about unnecessarily, apparently. His former chief of staff, John Kelly.
He commented more than once that, that Hitler did some good things too. And of course, if you know history, again, I think he's lacking in that. But if you know what Hitler was all about, it'd be pretty hard to make an argument that he did anything good.
So what would you say when he said to you that Hitler did a lot of good things?
Well, I tell him that. I said, sir, first of all, you should never say that. But if you knew what Hitler was all about from the beginning to the end, everything he did was in support of his racist, fascist life, philosophy, so that nothing he did you could argue was good. It was certainly not done for the right reason.
What would he say when you would lay that out to him?
You just, that'd be the end of the conversation usually.
That's the same bit of recording where that same chief of staff, John Kelly, former, a veteran, decorated veteran, conservative, said that Donald Trump is a fascist. But they never called him woke. They never said he was a blue-haired liberal. They never said he had Trump derangement syndrome. They just ignored it during the campaign when we saw him not only needing to hear from John Kelly saying he's a fascist, but listening to Donald Trump describe the fascist things that he wants to do in this country, calling people vermin, talking about the enemy within, talking about how he's going to go after his political enemies. Don't forget, they just posted, and after it got some attention, deleted. Why would you delete the post where you, at the Department of Education, compared Donald Trump in what you thought was a cool remix to Adolf Hitler? It's almost like they said, we don't have to try and lie to these people anymore. It's pretty obvious. We're a bunch of effing Nazis. Remember this?
Hitler worked on 2 major architectural projects. Number 1 was a ballroom. Number 2 was an Arc de Triomphe. Those 2 things Trump is now actively working on. In 1939, Hitler also constructed for himself, with his architect Albert Speer, a ballroom to celebrate through architecture the triumph of the Third Reich. The similarities don't end there. The other major significant architectural project that he worked on with his friend Albert Speer was also an Arc of Triumph after his visit to Paris. Trump has also proposed that we build an Arc of Triumph in commemorating himself across from the Lincoln Memorial. What I'm telling you is that he is sending signs to the public that he is serious about his authoritarianism and his willingness to push fascist extremist ideas to the end.
He's been doing it for a while. He just had his Patriot Games, similar to like the Nazi youth type of exercises where he thinks he's showing off the prowess of the young Trump supporters that decided to come out, that they handpicked. This is all about the normalization of fascism, the normalization and promotion of Nazis. That is after they kept denying that they're a bunch of Nazis.
And my father, when I was young, never mentioned the name Hitler, ever. He was tough on it. Somebody would say Hitler. Never mention that name. Nazi. Never mention that name. And he meant it too. And it was a word that you never use. You know, you never use those words.
It's the embodiment of
they
evil.
accuse me of being a Nazi. They accuse me of being a Hitler-type guy or a Hitler lover. And I'm not. I'm the opposite. They're the ones that are doing. They're oppressive. This is like an oppressive machine. And, you know, they also happen to have the press for whatever reason.
With, I guess, the newfound realization by many Americans that this guy is an effing liar and all he does is lie. You can listen to the way he's talking about that. Does anybody really believe that his father, that Donald Trump's father, his well-known racist father, said to him, never, never, never. Did he say sir? He said, sir, son, sir. Never mention Nazis. Don't say Hitler. That's a bad word in this house. Ever. My gosh, never do such a thing, son. Nobody believes that nonsense. Nobody believes it. Everyone knows about the history of this guy. Everyone knows about the history of his father. Everyone sees who he is, but we like to blind ourselves to the reality that's right in front of us. And as you saw, and you probably heard, he was talking to Sean Hannity, one of his biggest mouthpieces at Fox News, that always tries to cover for him.
Or as The Atlantic put it, quote, Donald Trump is speaking like Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini.
So they have all the psyops of the media now comparing him to Hitler, to Mussolini, and Stalin.
Trump is Hitler, and you know he's now fascist. So
Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, and on. And of course, Mussolini and Hitler and Stalin.
The bottom line, you can't be Hitler and do that. So the voters see how much they were lied to when they see stuff like this. It's like finding out Darth Vader is your dad. He's a threat to democracy. He's like Hitler, which we saw again this week, even though he was almost murdered because of that 3 months ago.
Oh, and have supporters comparing Donald Trump to Hitler and to Stalin and to Mussolini. And of course, he's racist. Harris herself used a years-old, corroborated, bogus accusation from a former disgruntled chief of staff to compare Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler. The Atlantic actually compared Trump to Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini. And needless to say, the melodramatic comparisons to Hitler, they are falling flat. Trump is Hitler, he's Stalin, he's Mussolini. If you're willing to compare Donald Trump to Hitler and Stalin and Mussolini, you're willing to say or do anything. So if you're willing to call somebody or compare them to Stalin, Hitler, and Mussolini.
Hitler or a or authoritarian.
Donald Trump is Hitler and he's a fascist. Donald Trump is a fascist and a Nazi, and that her surrogates are claiming that she's Stalin and Hitler and Mussolini.
He must get paid a lot to push that propaganda. Somebody should ask them. I feel like whenever these revelations come forward, why would the Department of Education, I guess they piled in on with all these crazies, calling him Hitler. Why would they make this cool little remix to try and make him look like Hitler? I mean, they didn't go with Stalin and Mao and Mussolini yet, but they definitely went with Hitler. Do you guys agree with it, Sean? By next week, Sean Hannity will be saying, what's really the problem with Hitler? Is there really such an issue? You know, the fake news media has been brainwashing us for decades about the evils of Adolf Hitler. I feel like we're heading in that direction. As a matter of fact, I don't think we're heading in that direction. I think we've been there ever since this sorry sumbitch took the stage at the inauguration, literally on Inauguration Day.
Thank you. My heart goes out to you.
Remember, a bunch of people had a bunch of disingenuous conversations about whether or not that sorry bastard was doing Adolf Hitler salutes and Heil Hitlers and Nazi salutes. Do you guys remember that? And we wasted like a week on that. I said one thing about it and I stopped talking about it because that's when I was in full identification mode of who are the people who are in support of Nazis, or who are the people who are not willing to identify when a Nazi does Nazi things. And then after that, Nazi policies ensued. We have ICE agents in the streets. We got Trump's personal armies in the streets murdering people, violating people's rights, illegally sending people to other countries. Isn't it weird how suddenly it all works out exactly the way we knew it would be working out? We've got concentration camps with people dying inside. We've got them covering up the deaths and abuse of people in those concentration camps. Isn't it weird? We've got children being taken away from their parents and never being seen or not knowing where they went. We've got 2-year-olds in court that are trying to defend themselves again against this this dictator's secret police force who put them in these positions. Are they Nazis yet? Or are we still going to be arguing about what is it they both told us, showed us, and have continued to implement in our country? Matter of fact, there's this accused rapist named Andrew Tate who's sitting in jail right now begging not to be extradited back to the UK. And who they're begging to make sure he doesn't leave is the same Donald Trump who we're not supposed to believe is the Nazi who supports a guy like this.
My heart goes out to all of you. You know, I'm kind of thinking we should bring the Nazi salute back, because the people we've been arguing with for the last 4 years have no interest in objective truth. Hail SpaceX!
Isn't it weird how suddenly we're celebrating Adolf Hitler? While at the same time saying, why are you guys talking about Adolf Hitler? We're only talking about him because you completely embody him.